The Bayou Blitz has a theme song. What the hell?
I know. We got to get on the stick. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. The 7-1 New Orleans Saints helped the 72 Dolphins uncork the bottle of champagne to celebrate yet another year where the last undefeated team went down. So the 72 Dolphins streak continues. With us defeating the Los Angeles Rams, the last undefeated team of the 2018 season. We'll talk about that game, and we'll talk about the upcoming game with the Cincinnati Bengals, trap game, and we'll talk about the rest of the season and where we think, because it's really week 10 coming up. But, the Saints have just played their 8th game, so we're also going to do a little mid-season grading, even though we're past that point in the regular season. And, yes, we'll talk about the visit today. Brandon Marshall.
Did the Pope come to bless our team since we are?
No, he didn't. He's still taking depositions for the sex crimes and stuff like that with the Archbishop. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about it. I'm a Catholic. I can say that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Boy, that took an ugly turn.
Yes, it did.
Well.
Anyway, welcome to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, with my partner, Sean Williams, and the unofficial third member of our group, the host of the Bayou Blitz, who's got a nice, cool shirt, has a cool theme song. We ain't got crap. Bob Rose. How you doing, Bob?
There you go. Sell that product.
I'm better. I'm better than crap. Apparently, I have a theme song. So
there you go.
Now I'm doing well, gentlemen. How about you two guys, my friends?
I'm doing good.
I am just about fully recovered from the weekend excursion to the Big Easy. Real quickly, I want to thank Quinn Early, Torrance Small, Tyrone Hughes, and everyone that was involved and everyone that came out to the deal at Empostato's the other night. It was such an honor to be with those guys, and I had a blast meeting everyone, shaking hands, taking photos, signing stuff. It was all fantastic. Let's see. I left Empostato's and got back to the hotel about halfway through the first quarter of the LSU-Alabama game. So that was pretty much the end of that one. I got to drive home from New Orleans and about, I'll say, Crystal Springs, Mississippi, the national anthem preceding the Saints kickoff took place, and I got to listen to it on the way home. It was great. I still, as of yet, I haven't seen video of the first, with the exception of Michael Thomas's tribute to Hollywood Joe Horn. I haven't seen the first play of the game, and a full disclosure, all this season I've been trying something new. I'm superstitious. I always have. If it's a road game, there's this jersey that I wear to watch and listen. If it's a home game, I wear this jersey. This season, I haven't worn a jersey for a single game. And as I'm driving home, they singing the national anthem, and I'm driving, I'm doing 75 miles an hour in what can only be described as a monsoon. And I go to scratch my head and look down, and I'm wearing my Drew Brees jersey and nearly ran off the road. But we may be wearing Drew Brees again this Sunday. And that's the unofficial fourth member of our broadcast team.
Who apparently doesn't like your choice of jerseys.
Will nephew is lighting it up. Hey, buddy.
Say
What
hi.
up, Will?
Say hi.
Hey, Will. Hey, Will.
What up, Will?
You funny. Anyway, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Get on with business here. We want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring us. Invite everyone to subscribe to our show on YouTube and iTunes. I guess a good place to start would be the obligatory workouts that everyone has been talking about all day today. For those who haven't heard, if you've been under a rock somehow, the Saints brought in 3 wide receivers today for workouts. A guy named Aiken, that's a former Baltimore Raven. I'm not at all familiar with him, in all honesty. But the other 2 I'm fairly up to date on, and that would be Brandon Marshall, former Giant, former Bronco, I believe, and
Former
Jet. I thought that, but I wasn't going to say it.
Bronco, Bear, Dolphin, Giant, Jet, Seahawk.
Yep. He's been around.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're like the next in line. And then there was the other guy, number 88 in the programs, number 0. In your hearts, Mr. X.
Drew Pearson.
Oh, really? I thought it was Michael Irvin.
Oh, thank you.
Drew Pearson was the only number 88 for the Cowboys. I'm sorry. I'm a traditionalist. Anything after Drew Pearson was an imitation. But I digress. Dez Bryant, former Cowboy, former Oklahoma State Cowboy. He was in town for workouts. Now, the prevailing rumor mill seems to be that of these 3, the Saints were determined to sign at least one to the team, pending their workout, la-di-da. And up until 15 minutes ago, no one has been reported. Of course, after 3:00 p.m. our time, anything that happens will not appear on the official wire until the following day. But as of now, there is no deal to report from Dez, Marshall, or Aiken. So, Bob, what do you think? Of the 3, is there anything to be had here for the Saints? Being in the position that they're in, is there anything that either of these 3 have to offer?
No. Next question. Real quick about Kamar Aiken. No, he would be nothing but a depth guy. He had a couple nice seasons with Baltimore. Did have a 900-yard season in 2015. Other than that, he's never had a receiving season above 330 yards. He would be nothing but a depth guy. And the 2 big names, as you said, are Brandon Marshall and Dez Bryant. Personally, let's step into a time machine and put both gentlemen back into their prime for a minute. I would actually prefer Brandon Marshall in the Saints offense because he has always been such a sharp route runner. You could never question Brandon's hands. Both Dez and Brandon have been legitimate red zone threats, both big physical competitors, big physical receivers. But like I said, in my opinion, throughout their careers, Brandon has always been the more crisp route runner, able to play a little bit in the slot. Neither are deep threats or anything like that. Now, let's step back out of our time machine and realize that it's 2018, and there's a reason that both of these gentlemen do not have a job. I know both of them come with a long history of baggage, sideline temper tantrums, front office and coaching feuds. I think the Saints leadership hierarchy, not only through the coaching staff, but the locker room, I think they're pretty strong. So I don't think either one of these guys are a strong enough presence at this point to be a divisive influence. I just don't think rather that either one of them bring really anything to the table. They're both past their primes. And yeah, the Saints aren't looking for a number one receiver anyway. They're just looking for a little bit of complementary production outside of Thomas and Kamara in the receiving game. But you look at Dez Bryant, even when he was at his best, he is, when you said it before we went on air, Alan, Dez is an ex-receiver. He's a strictly an outside guy. Well, they already have Michael Thomas for that. And you're not going to take Thomas's place in the lineup. You're not even going to take snaps away from Thomas. Dez's hands have always been a question mark throughout his career. And when a receiver's skill set starts to go, the first thing that starts to go on them, it's not their speed and it's definitely not their route running. It's their hands. Dez has really, really struggled with drops the last couple of years. And like I said, it's not Brandon or Dez's. It's not their personalities that have them without a job. Because all kinds of teams would have wanted them when they were in their prime. They don't have a job right now, and they're looking in from the outside because their skill level has just declined that much. And I don't see Dez being able to pick up the Saints system and being able to work up a rapport with his quarterback, even as good as Drew is, enough to give anything significant to the Saints offense. It would be nothing more than a name and maybe a couple. If Dez signed tomorrow, or Brandon for that matter too, it'd be nothing more than a name and a handful of receptions, probably a couple obligatory touchdowns in there. Nothing that's going to significantly tilt the balance of power one direction or the other.
Wow. Well, I mean, that pretty much sums up my opinion. I mean, the fact is, what the Saints really need is they need somebody who can help stretch the field. You can move Michael Thomas to the slot. They like doing that. So, there would be plays where Brandon Marshall, or let's just assume it's going to be Dez Bryant for this argument. Dez Bryant is playing the X, okay? And Thomas is in the slot. And you have Traquan Smith as a Y. All right. So here's the thing, though. Dez Bryant he's more reputation than he is a player. And especially in the fans' eyes, is he going to be able to beat the jam? Is he going to be able to stretch the field? He can't stretch the field at his age anymore. So it's about him now going across the middle, making those tough catches to convert third downs to first downs, to take that pressure off of Michael Thomas. And I just don't see him being able to do that at 30 years old. I thought that was part of his problem at Dallas. Yes, Dak Prescott is a noodle arm quarterback who's not very accurate. We'll just get that out the way. But it's also true that he is an aging receiver, and that's the part that people don't get. They look at, my Madden 2014, he's awesome. I bet he is. He scored 16 touchdowns in 2014. But we're not playing Madden 2014. We're not playing Madden 2018. We're playing real football with guys who put their hands on you, safeties who are coming to knock your head off. And you look at a guy like Michael Thomas, what do you see? You see a guy who snatches the ball out of the air. You never saw that kind of stuff with Dez Bryant. You look at Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara gets his shoulders turned around, snatches that ball out of the air. It's not a body catch. What I think is happening, though, unfortunately, right now, is we're seeing a lack of production by a second receiver for the Saints. The number one guy is Thomas. Number two guy is Kamara. I think the third guy is Ben Watson.
Yep.
Ted Ginn is out injured. He's on injured reserve. Tre'Quan Smith's a rookie, so he has his rookie moments. He's not a Michael Thomas receiver. He's a typical third-round rookie receiver who has his good games, has his bad games, but is not that guy yet. And Cameron Meredith, we see him every week on the injury report, either not practicing or limited in practice because he's having issues with his knee still. So we're not getting consistent production out of him. So the only one you have left is Austin Carr, who's been an invisible man for most of the games. Who they've been trying to throw the ball down to? They're starting to throw the ball to, Guido Merkins 2.0, Taysom Hill. Just to try, but they need to get some kind of consistent receiver, and that's why you see the graveyard of forgotten favorites being dug up to get these guys to come in here and see if they can at least contribute something. Because we're going to talk about the Rams game in a minute, but I promise you, if we play the Rams again, Marcus Peters is not going to be on Michael Thomas this time around. They're going to put Aqib Talib, if he's healthy, on Michael Thomas because Marcus Peters can't cover him. He just can't. He's physically incapable of covering that guy. So the Saints know this, and they need a guy to be able to get pressure off of Thomas, move Thomas around away from a guy like Aqib Talib. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I apologize for interrupting you. I don't think that the skill set is what's lacking on Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters, the rap sheet on him has been the same since he entered the league. If he can make the highlight reel play and turn it into a pick six, that's what he's going to go for every time. Being a shutdown corner, you cannot play the ball. You have got to play the receiver. And he does the exact opposite. And Michael Thomas took that and run him into the ground the other night, from what I understand.
He counts on pressure up front, forcing an inaccurate pass, and he can make a break on the ball. He's not a man-to-man guy. He's more of a zone, let me roam and make plays on the ball. That's the kind of cornerback he is. It's not a knock on him. That's just who he is. And with a guy like Michael Thomas, who is a 90%, 95% catch receiver, and Drew Brees, the most accurate quarterback in the league, they must have been drooling making that game plan, going, we're going to expose this guy, we're going to abuse this guy, and that's exactly what he did out there.
Well,
absolutely.
I'll tell you what, too, and we were talking a little bit before we went on the air about a potential rematch with LA. And, obviously, if everything lines up according to chalk at this point, that's exactly what you're looking at. I couldn't agree more that Marcus Peters cannot match up with Michael Thomas. Peters is not a bad defensive back at all. As a matter of fact, he is one of the better ones in the league. But a shutdown man-to-man corner, he is not. However, Aqib Talib has almost the identical skill set. Aqib's a better man-to-man guy, but you look throughout his history, and all I can think of was how Demaryius Thomas ate his lunch when Talib was in a New England Patriot uniform. And Demaryius, when he was at his best, was a kind of a scaled-down version of Michael Thomas. So if Talib is in the lineup, and some of the Ram apologists all week have been saying, well, if we get Talib back, it'll be a different rematch. Well, okay, my response is, I have two responses to that. Hopefully the Saints will have Davenport, Ginn, and Te'o back in the lineup, and then we can talk. And then the other response is, I think Michael Thomas would eat Aqib Talib alive too. However, points all well made that the Saints have struggled. And this dates back to last year, and that's why they struggled on third downs last year. They have not gotten any complimentary production. Here's some frightening numbers for you. And I like Ben Watson. Don't get me wrong. And I think for a tight end, 37-year-old tight end in his 15th season, he's given the Saints some good ball, and we didn't expect anything less.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas has 79 targets. Alvin Kamara has 66 targets. The next, third on the list, is Watson, 26. I'll let that sink in for a minute. Now, I'm a big fan of what Traquan's starting to do. He looks like he's more comfortable in the offense on a week-by-week basis, and I think he is going to be a big factor down the stretch. But you're taking an awful big chance when you count on a rookie. But I agree with you guys. And like I said before, I don't think Brandon Marshall, Des Bryant, Jeremy Curley, who they were going to try to set up a workout with and things didn't work out, or even Kamar Aiken. Those guys aren't the answer. They got to roll with what they have. They'll be a better team when Ted Ginn gets back, if Ted Ginn gets healthy before the end of the season. Because there's at least a comfort factor and a trust factor. And we know that Ginn can make plays downfield too. Other than that, they roll with what they have.
Yeah, I know the popular myth is Drew Brees can make any receiver look good. Well, if that's the case, then why isn't Cam Meredith right up there in the listing? Why isn't Traquan Smith right up in the list? Why isn't Austin Carr, who's been in this system for 2 years now, up in that listing? It's not that easy. It's a complicated offense to learn. You've got to know all the positions. You have to run a complete route tree. It's a very complicated system. It's simple for Breeze, but it's a very complicated system for a receiver, a skill position player to master. And that's the issue.
He's been doing it for 13 years. I would hope it would be easy for him.
Well, it's designed around his strengths. So
yeah,
that's the good thing.
Yeah. Well, guys, every year it seems like I've been on your pre-free agency show, and as we're going down the position list and we get to the receiver position and potential free agents, we always have the same discussion, and the three of us are more often than not in agreement with this position. The Saints just don't typically look for big name receivers from other teams.
No.
Since Sean Payton stepped into town in 2006. Ted Ginn being the notable exception, any other receiver that's had success has been brought up and raised in that system, either as a rookie or as a very young cast-off from another team. Willie Snead, Lance Moore, Marcus Colston, the list goes on and on. And obviously Thomas now, Brandon Cooks. They were born and raised in the Saints system, and no NFL team, it's that easy to step in off of the street and be a success right away, let alone if your skill set is diminishing a little bit and if you're stepping in mid-season. Because these game plans are being implemented on the fly. The players have to pick up the specific week's game plan in really less than 24 hours, which means you already better have a good hold on your own team's playbook.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, I don't think that it. I think maybe you guys might agree with me on this. When Ted Ginn was brought in here, he wasn't brought in here to be a wide receiver. He was brought in here to be a special teams guy.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and that's the other issue we've been having, getting a good kick returner. We still don't have a kick returner. You've got Taysom Hill returning kicks, and you've got Alvin Kamara out there returning punts. This team has not had a pure kick returner since the days of Michael Lewis. And that's just been, it's a problem that the Saints have had since Sean Payton's been here. You've put Reggie Bush back there. You put Darren Sproles back there. And then you have Alvin Kamara back there. You just don't have that guy who is a threat every time he touches the ball. And I think that's what what Payton has been looking for all the years he's been here, to find that one guy who can play receiver and be a threat in the kick return game. And he just hasn't able to find it.
That makes me wonder what practices with Boston Scott were like, because as you guys know, I've been a diehard follower of Louisiana Tech for such a long time. And I've seen Boston Scott play special teams, and we spent a middle round draft pick to get the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not even been activated for a game this season, to my knowledge. I don't think he even made the. I think he was added to the 53 like a day after the finalization of the roster, and just as quickly taken back off of it. I don't pretend to understand all the intricacies of that, but anytime that you have to have a special team, or well, more to the point for this conversation, a return specialist that is a split duty guy, a la Darren Sproles, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, there's going to be an issue because if you get him hurt returning a punt, you also lose him on the offense.
Yeah.
And that's if you lose an Alvin Kamara in this offense, that is going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. I think he's still in the practice squad.
He is.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. And I have to your point, Sean. I have a strong suspicion, that Alvin Kamara is standing back there to field punts, not return them, for the exact reasons that both of you just laid out about his importance to the offense. Could Kamara be a skilled punt returner? Yeah, I think he could be. And we might see some legitimate return attempts in a big situation in a big game. Other than that, 90% of the time, I'd suspect that Kamara is back there just to secure and field the punt and get the offense back out onto the field.
Well, the one time that he had the green light, look what happened.
Yeah,
right.
So that brings us to Christmas in early November, as I referred to last Sunday evening. It was in Alan's post-game column, if you will, that he does every week. I really, really loved the analogy that you used with the Rocky. Rocky and Clubber Lang. I thought that was so apropos because this really was it was hyped and built up to be a heavyweight slugfest, and it was every bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that's been a fan of the Saints prior to Drew Brees being their quarterback, going back to the 70s and back in the NFC West days when we had to play the Rams as part of the division package, on the way home, I'm driving 80 miles an hour down the interstate listening to this and texting Alan at the same time.
That's nice to know.
I texted Alan right after halftime. I said, I've seen this effing movie before. Yep. The Saints come out like gangbusters and build up a 20-point lead at halftime, and then they get beat by 2 points at the end of the game. And when the Rams tied it up, I'm sitting in the passenger seat. By this time, we've gotten back together. The wife driving, and I'm throwing stuff in the cab of the car, and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "We had a 21-point lead, and we blew it."
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that people are going to say is that the Saints suck.
Oh, the Falcon fans are just waiting for that.
Yeah. And then the next thing that I hear over the radio is Michael Thomas breaking the long 72-yard touchdown, and that made me feel a little better. And I was texting in one of the live chat groups at this point, and I said, I want us to keep scoring. I want to score more points. I want to keep throwing the ball. I want to send a message to all these people that were talking about how the Saints were pretenders and not contenders, how the Rams were the best. And, it has occurred to me since that it's irrelevant to put up that argument because people are going to say what they're going to say, and they're not going. It infuriated me. It absolutely infuriated me that the Saints put forth the effort that they did. They withstood the barrage, the second half resurgence that the Rams put up. And Alan made a point earlier. I'm going to let him allude to that momentarily about the play of the offensive line. Todd Gurley has been all universe this entire season. We held him to under 80 yards, I believe, or just over 80 yards, I believe.
68 yards.
We shut him down for all practical intents and purposes compared to the balance of his season. We did what we did, and at the end of the day, the headlines belong to Tom Brady beating Aaron Rodgers on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, no.
You have a quarterback right now that has a quarterback rating above every NFL MVP over the last 8 seasons. 8 seasons. Every time the NFL MVP has been a quarterback, and they do not have the quarterback rating that this man has right now, and he ain't getting a sniff at the conversation for most valuable player of the league.
That's because all he does is stand back there and throw the football.
Right.
That's exactly what Maurice Jones-Drew said. He just stands back there and throws the football.
For yards and yards and yards.
Oh, there's some idiot on Twitter who was trying to argue that Drew Brees throws for the fewest amount of yards in the air per pass play than any other quarterback. Like, he's essentially a Dak Prescott or somebody else he compared him to. Nathan Peterman, I think, is who he compared him to.
God.
Yeah, as far as how few yards the ball actually travels in the air. And I'm just like, I neither have the time nor the crayons to explain this to you. That's not what's going on. But it was a Patriots fan, so I have
the only way, and Lord and my parents, if they were ever watch this, forgive me, but the only way I know how to address this is shoot from the hip. The only way this bullshit is going, I'm sorry, Will. The only way that this is going to stop is for the Saints to get to the Super Bowl and play the New England Patriots.
No, it won't.
No.
Because what they're going to say is Brees could kick the hell out of Brady. Okay? And what are they going to say?
Brady didn't have a team.
Yes. Did this tarnish Tom Brady's legacy? The man has been to 9 Super Bowls, and he's lost 4. What does this say about Tom Brady? Is he still the GOAT? Oh, yeah, that other guy, Breeze, he beat Manning and Brady both in the championship. But really, what does this say about Tom Brady? And we have to talk like it's the Masters, too, because it's an annual tradition. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady every February in the Super Bowl. A tradition like no other. The Masters. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. I mean, that's just the way it goes. Yeah. And CBS actually does have the Super Bowl this year, so you are going to get Jim Nantz doing the game and Tony Romo. So, that's how you're supposed to talk about Tom Brady in the reverent tones of the Masters. I mean, and that's so we could beat the hell out of him. It's not going to matter because it's going to be about Brady. It's not going to be about Breeze. So at this point, I'm like, the hell with the Patriots. I don't want them anywhere near the Super Bowl. I know they got gifted 6 wins in that crap they call a division. And I know that the only team that probably could challenge them is the Kansas City Chiefs. And we have to worry about Andy Reid sabotaging that come playoff time. Because, who else is going to do it? That dysfunctional organization that calls themselves the Steelers, the Ravens, who we seem to have broken, Because if you watch the Ravens the past 2 games, it's like we broke that team. I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah.
So, you've got nothing else. You really don't. I mean, because whatever rises out of that, again, I apologize, but that shitstorm they call it AFC South with, Crapsonville Jaguars and the Texans, who, the Patriots would kill those guys in the playoffs. It's the Titans, really? And Captain Andrew Luck, who has the greatest Twitter in the world, but he doesn't have a football team. So, you just don't have anything in the AFC. So it's always a cakewalk for the Patriots. That's why they're in the Super Bowl over and over and over again. It's a bad penny that just keeps coming. Or it's like that bad Taco Bell that you had. You get to enjoy it 3 and 4 times in the same day because it keeps coming back. So, I mean...
No, we can't have guests. We can't have sponsors.
I just compared the Patriots to dry heaving and acid reflux. So, where else can I go from there?
No, that's about accurate. I just dead on. Look, I've said it on your show. I've said it on my show. I've actually gotten in a little bit of trouble because I don't remember whether it's ESPN or Fox Sports owns the company that owns the company that owns the company that owns Canal Street Chronicles. But I mean, there's been a few of us that have been asked, hey, try not to bash the alphabet networks.
The rat has the gauntlet, so
right.
There's no way to get around it.
But look, those talking heads are jokes. I don't know who read my Game Balls article, my game recap in Canal Street Chronicles after the Rams game. But the first line in it was, hey, I'm paraphrasing, but believe it or not, NFL memo to the NFL. New Orleans actually has a football team, and don't look at it now. Look at them now; they're actually championship contenders. These guys aren't going to acknowledge anybody that's not named. Well, Peyton's gone, but anybody that's not named Brady or Rodgers. Simple and end of story. They have their darlings every year. They have their darlings every year. The Rams being one of them. The Vikings last year. The Nick Foles story. They pick up a storyline every year. Other than that, it's always going to be Brady and Belichick in the almighty state, Mr. Rodgers. Go ahead. I love him. Zero attention. Most of the pregame and postgame shows are absolutely unwatchable now. I pay attention to the local beat writers, and what the teams themselves are doing and saying. I know what my eyes tell me, and I know what what the circle of actual legitimate broadcasters tell me, and that's who I'm going to follow. Other than that, that's usually my only response to why didn't Breeze get the MVP. It was absolutely criminal he didn't get it in 2011. Absolutely criminal. Who got it? The All-State man.
Yeah.
Go to hell. They can go to hell on all of them. I'd rather focus on the next game for the New Orleans Saints and what the Saints did well to win the last game and what they need to do well to win the next game. Other than that, Maurice Jones-Drew, Trent Dilfer, et cetera. I don't know what happened to them because they're football men. They know that a lot of them actually know the game, but they had their brains sucked out as soon as they retired. So I pay zero attention to the national talking head.
Well, CTE is a real thing, though.
Well, it's thou shalt not speak ill of, and they got that list of teams. They need the Los Angeles market to grow and thrive. The Chargers can't sell out of a 30,000 seat stadium. Half the time it's full of opposing teams' fans. And the Rams, they're getting some decent crowds, but it's still full of a lot of people. That's really USC stadium. So, I mean, that's why the Los Angeles Mercenaries can put together the team they got. And they need that team to be successful. and the team is not successful, they're in trouble. Yeah, they can't afford. They can't afford for a team to move from that, because if this team leaves, if the Rams leave, they'll never be in that market ever again, and they know that. And the way the rules are written now, with high scoring arena football type of offense, punishing defenses. We're going to talk a little bit about our grades in a minute about each position, but you look at this game. This game is exactly the kind of game the NFL wants, because you had two teams that average over 30 points per game. The Saints jumped out to a 21-point lead over the Falcons, the Rams, and the Rams came right back and tied it at 35. That's exactly what they want, because you've got the fantasy aspect. People are making a lot of fantasy points at that game. Breeze threw for 346 and 4 touchdowns. Goff threw for 391, I think, and 3 touchdowns.
And the Saints defense lost me 6 points.
Yeah. Well, they don't care about the defense, though, because, the Saints couldn't stop the Rams. Well, the Rams couldn't stop the Saints. The only way the Saints punted was receivers dropping the ball. And Peyton getting a little too conservative in their first couple of possessions. But, that is exactly what they want. They want every game to be like that. Mm-hmm. Every game coming down to the final minutes, and that both teams are at 30-something points, and the last couple minutes of the game are the difference, because you've got a generation of people, millennials mainly, who don't watch football. They don't watch an entire game. They watch the highlights on NFL Red Zone. They watch it on Hulu, YouTube, you name it. They're not going to sit and watch the game itself. So if you've got a high-scoring game, that's a lot of highlights. A 14-7 game is not going to interest people. They're not going to watch that stuff. So that's what the NFL is doing to try and make up the ratings. That's why they promote a guy like Patrick Mahomes as the new superstar in the league, because he's thrown, 26, 28 touchdown passes now. That's why he's the favorite for the MVP, because that's a fantasy stud right there, And the Rams.
It wouldn't bother me for Mahomes to get MVP if it's not going to be Breeze, because Mahomes has earned it.
Well, I'm not knocking the kid either, but he is doing the things they want to see done. They don't want a defensive secondary is going to shut down another team. They're not going to let that happen. So,
and at the same time, his team is succeeding.
Yeah. The Chiefs are giving up. They're giving up a ton of yardage and a ton of points. If you look at it statistically, I think the Chiefs are just above the Buccaneers as far as the worst defense in the league. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty damn sure they're in the lower half of the low 20s, upper 30s. They're either 28, 29 of total defense.
Their defense
somewhere around there.
Is awful this year. Losing
Peters, Eric Berry
has decimated their defense.
But they're what, 7-1?
Yes.
Because even with the worst defense.
Yes.
Because of Mahomes.
Yeah.
Whereas
when you average 4.5 touchdown passes a game.
Yeah.
That's hard to beat.
Yep. And the NFL is perfectly fine with it. That's what they want to see. Mm-hmm. They want that kind of shootout. So,
all right. A lot of rule changes were made and are geared the way that they are. It has nothing to do with player safety. Mm-hmm. It's to tune in a larger faction of the general population and to open the game up more for gambling, fantasy football, and the dollar sign.
Yep.
I just went to the polls just before we went on the air tonight.
I went to
the polls and voted. And one of the statutes that was being voted on tonight was to legalize fantasy sports in our parish.
Yeah, same with
Which
us.
I'm
It's
sorry, Bob, for
statewide.
you that would be county, but
Yeah, it's statewide. Statewide, they're doing that. Each parish or county gets to vote on that, and I voted for it. I mean,
I
I'm not.
did too.
I don't play fantasy football anymore, but
I
yeah,
have a team, but apparently I don't play much anymore either. Mahomes is my quarterback. He gave me 30-plus points. Alvin Kamara is my running back. He gave me 30-plus points. I still lost.
who the hell else you have on your team?
Come on, Aiken.
I have Tariq Cohen, who his picture is on the side of a milk carton, I think, for this past week. I have Delvin Funchess. I would have to look it up to. I have Traquan Smith. I have.
You're one of these. Are you one of these guys? Never changes your roster, plays the same roster every week.
Well, for all the good it does, no, I change it, but
Okay.
usually the ones that are about to go off points wise are the ones that I bench. So
That's what I figured. Your bench scores more points than your starters do.
yeah, I'm driving along, coming home the other night. Traquan scores a touchdown. I said, well, maybe I should have started him. So, that's just how it works. But, in all honesty, as much fun as I have doing the fantasy stuff, if I lose every fantasy game and the Saints win, I'm good with that, brother. But transitioning into our last subject for the show tonight, we wanted to give out some mid-season grades for the position groups on the New Orleans Saints team. We're going to start with the offensive line. Alan, what say you?
Oh, that's an easy A. That is the strength of this offense, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
You look at it. You look at the Baltimore Ravens right before we played them. They sacked poor Marcus Mariota 11 times. Okay, the Vikings this past week just sacked Matthew Stafford 10 times. You had Aaron Donald this week across from you. That's the NFL's. I think he's the leading sacker still, but he's the most disruptive player in the NFL playing against you. And what happened in each game? The big goose egg, how many sacks the Ravens got. The big goose egg, how many sacks the Vikings got. And the big goose egg, how many sacks did the Rams get? This offensive line is dominating teams very quietly. Now, they're getting in every so often, they're getting pressure and things like that. But Drew Brees, for the most part, can stand back there in that pocket and pick teams apart. And he also is getting big running lanes open for Alvin Kamara and even to Mark Ingram. At the end of the Vikings game, Mark Ingram's really grinding that clock out. So, it's just that is the strength of this offense. That offensive line is got to be the best offensive line this team has ever had. Even though I still think, Evans and Nix were a better guard tandem than Warford and Pete. Just as a unit, they're the best. They are.
Listening to Bobby Hebert on the pregame Sunday, they all but eulogized Andrus Peat before that Los Angeles Rams game.
Oh, yeah.
And I never heard anybody talking about, well, that's a sack over Pete or a sack over Warford.
Nope.
To me, A++, 100%. And I totally agree with you in terms of it being the very foundation that this offense is performing with right now. It is absolutely that offensive line.
Yes. Absolutely. You want to go to the next one then? The next position? You want to ask Bob about that one?
We got Bob.
I never really left. It was just bedtime.
Apparently, Will's not that crazy about it either.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's my least favorite time of day with Will. or was that time period that you folks have just seen.
I got you.
When you hear him screaming, he's not being pummeled. He just dislikes bedtime that much.
Yeah, I got you.
Man after my own heart.
I suppose some of us don't bother sleeping, so we don't have to deal with that.
Bob texted me one time and he said, "Do you ever sleep?" I said, "Well, I got 8 hours last night." He said, "I did. I got 8 hours, but it took me like 4 days to do it."
Yeah. Yeah. We're still on offensive line, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. I think you got to give them an A. Yeah, they shut down, and don't forget the Redskins either. The Redskins have one heck of a pass rushing front, and they did get 2 sacks on Breeze. But Washington, Minnesota's front line, their talent can't be denied. Same with the Baltimore Ravens stat line, and of course we know what the Rams had. In those games, their opponents combined for 3 sacks. Drew's only been sacked 9 times all year, and even more important than just the sheer sack numbers. He's not being pressured. He's not being rushed or hurried, and he's not getting hit as he's throwing the ball. He has time to move around in the pocket, to step up. He's not seeing any interior rush or rush from the edges. This Saints offensive line, when they're healthy, and it's so good to see Andrews Pete back in the lineup. They are not only winning physically at the point of attack, but they're still able to get to the second level of the defense. All of them have that kind of athleticism. So when that running game gets rolling, you see big gains downfield because they're getting the blocks down the field. The Saints are just able to impose their physical will on their opponents and have been able to do so all year. And it starts with that line up front. I'd heard one of you saying when I was wrestling with Will, I heard one of you saying that this has got to be the best Saints starting 5 offensive line. And I couldn't agree more. We could legitimately see 3 Pro Bowlers from this line, both tackles, and Larry Warford is playing at an all-pro level. You can't, as long as they stay healthy, because depth is still a little bit of a question mark. As long as they stay healthy, this team is going to be tough to beat up front.
Absolutely. Let's look at the backfield, the running backs. Sean, how would you grade the running backs?
Well, I think it's thus far in the season. I kind of divided it into 2 halves because you had the first 4 games without Mark Ingram, and then the usual Saints offense that features Kamara and Ingram. And I think you have to divide it up that way because if you guys remember, over the course of that first 4 games of the season, it was a constant conundrum as to, well, we've got Kamara, but what else do we have? And when Ingram came back, all of that went away. And everything has been situation normal. You've gotten those more of those quality, timely snaps for Kamara, and you've got, as Alan just alluded to a moment ago, you've got that grinded out at the end of the game yardage from Ingram, and that tough inside pick up the first down yardage from Ingram as well. It's hard, given the productivity that they've put up, it's hard to not give them anything less than, I would say, a B. And the only reason that I give it a B would be because the lack of depth over the course of that first 4 games of the season. The Saints, some of those first 4 games, they struggled in a way that they probably would not have without Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
Or, excuse me, with Ingram. I apologize.
No, I understand what you're saying. Bob, let me ask you this real quick. Ingram fumbled Sunday. He got hit on the arm. It was just a hat on the ball, got part of his elbow. And he really hasn't been able to get on track like he did last year. He hasn't had that big 100-yard rushing game. And Kamara got the bulk of the snaps. And I think he has 12 TDs already this year. How would you, we know what Kamara means his offense, but how would you grade Ingram since he's come back?
I'd give Ingram's individual grade a C for the exact reason that you just mentioned. He hasn't gotten on track. It's not like he's played poorly. I think we got to give tons of credit to Alvin Kamara because he's a much tougher inside runner than what any of us anticipated that he might be. Because remember, Kamara has a 100-yard rushing game, and it came before Ingram's return. So Kamara's done a great job of picking up some inside over the guard and inside yardage. Mm-hmm. That being said, Ingram is still the man they're going to turn to for those tough yards as long as he's on the roster. We saw it, especially against Baltimore and Minnesota. He's the guy that they were giving the ball to in the fourth quarter to kind of grind down that defense. So like I said, it's not like Ingram has played poorly. He's just not had that Mark Ingram game that we're so accustomed to seeing from him, especially over the previous 2 or 3 years. I still think Mark is going to be a big factor in how this team does down the stretch of the season. And we're going to see that from him because he doesn't look out of shape or anything like that. He's not getting the touches and he's not been able to get on track as a result. He still does a terrific job at blitz pickup and pass protection. Mm-hmm. Ingram hasn't even been utilized as a pass receiver a whole lot. And we know he had that couple good games against Washington through screen passes on his first game back. Otherwise, he's fairly quiet. He's going out there, he's doing his job, just like the rest of the team. But not really been a standout. And that's the only reason I'd give Mark's individual performance a C so far.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of Ingram in the Dallas game, in the Atlanta game, and the Carolina game. I think we're going to see that's where Ingram really is going to be back to what we're used to seeing. Mm-hmm. Just because those are the kind of games he needs to be there for. Sean, on the receiving core, we talked a little bit about the receiving core when we were talking about Dez Bryant and so forth. I've got my opinions on this, but how would you grade the receiving core, including the tight ends?
C+ to a B-.
Yeah.
There again, just like I mentioned with the running backs, you almost, to be fair, you almost have to break it down into 2 different segments with Michael Thomas and then everybody besides number 13. Mm-hmm. As far as what Michael Thomas has done, I mean, he's rewriting the record books as each game progresses. And we haven't mentioned this yet, but he broke a 39-year-old record Sunday night with the game against the Rams. Broke Wes Chandler.
Yeah, Wes Chandler's record on opening day. Opening day in 2009. 1979.
He broke that record, but hence the workouts that we discussed at great length earlier in the program. The production beyond anyone wearing a jersey number 13, I mean, it's been sporadic at best. You've had Austin Carr catching a pass here and there. You've had Traquan Smith catching a pass here and there. Cameron Meredith here and there. You haven't had the consistent productivity that you're going to need down the stretch going towards the playoffs, much less through the playoffs. So I would feel comfortable saying B-. That would allow for Michael Thomas's contributions thus far. B-.
Yeah. He's Michael Thomas is about 5 receptions away from surpassing Quinn Early to move to number 9 on the Saints all-time receiving. And Yeah, he's about 500 yards away from passing Quinn. And yeah, he is quickly moving up the list. And this is only his third season. Yeah, he's passed a lot of names already. Henry Charles is now number 11.
You guys were talking about this in one of those chat rooms earlier today, showing the over the years, and they have already, through 8 games of the season, they've already surpassed the passing totals of all but I think 3 of those years, maybe.
Pretty close, yeah, pretty close. Yeah, this offense is quickly closing on the 2011 records. So yeah, this is a heck of an offense. I believe early in the season he broke Tony Galbraith's 40-year-old record for most receptions in a game.
Yes.
So he just passed up Wes Chandler, got past that record. Yeah, he's rewriting the record books, and you're right. If you're going to grade the Saints receivers, you have to take Michael Thomas out of the equation because that's obviously an A, and then the rest of the receivers. And I'm with you. I'm going to give him a C because, this is why we have a Dez Bryant possibly signing with us because since and he wasn't even having a good year this year, but since Ted Ginn has been out of the lineup, the receiving corps is really struggling to find that second guy, that guy who can either stretch the defense or can take pressure off of Michael Thomas. And we're lucky
I think
Thomas can do what he does.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay.
I think it's an indication of for lack of a better word, the severity of this issue that the number 2 receiver on the team is a running back.
Well, that's how it was in 2013 as well. 2013 and 2011. No, I'm sorry. Colston was number 2. The running back was number 3. But yeah, the running backs are in this offense. Running backs are going to be in the top 3 every year.
Yeah. But like I say, I think that for this team, for this offense, to get to the level where we all anticipate them being and where certainly has to be the goal in mind, there's going to have to be someone else to step up and to deliver. Besides, sooner or later, especially when you get into the playoffs and all the teams are good, all the defenses are good, somebody down along the line is going to take Michael Thomas away from you. As we were talking earlier about the New England Patriots, the first thing that Bill Belichick is going to do, he's going to take the best weapon that you've got away from you.
And we're very lucky we have an Alvin Kamara, and that's the importance of Mark Ingram right there. Because, you take away Michael Thomas, here comes Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram is right there behind him. And he's a better pass receiver on screen passes than Kamara is, which is a really odd thing. But it's true that Ingram's a much better receiver because it's about selling the screen.
Yeah.
And he sells it a lot better. In fact, and I'm going to let Bob talk in just a second here. But on that 72-yard touchdown play, when you rewatch that play, that pass to Thomas, 2 guys go after Kamara because he was a primary receiver. It was either a wheel route or a swing route to the outside, and 2 guys followed Kamara, which left Thomas one-on-one with Marcus Peters. And, Breeze couldn't pass that up. It was just an unbelievable play, but that's why you got the big play, because of a guy like Kamara on the field. But, Bob, we've talked about the receivers and things like that, and we talked about Drew Brees as the quarterback and how we all feel like he's well overdue the MVP award. But I'm going to change gears a little bit. Outside of Brees, what do you think of the Taysom Hill experiment? I know how my partner feels about him. I want to hear from you.
PG-13, please.
Taysom Tebow.
Hey, that's not a far stretch.
No, it's not. and really, I think he's a faster version of Tim Tebow. And I mean that in a good and a bad way. I cringe every time Taysom comes into the game because I'm afraid they're going to have him throw the football. Yeah, I know he completed that pass to Michael Thomas. Mike had to make one hell of an adjustment to come back and get the ball. But
he had to fall down so he didn't outrun it.
Okay. Well, that was the hell of an adjustment. He had to pretend to trip. What Taysom does when he comes into the game, if the Saints are going to run the ball and the defenses are sure that the Saints are going to run the ball when he's in the ball game, or at least when he's lined up as a shotgun quarterback. I actually don't mind that because it does take some of the defensive focus away from specifically Kamara. And it does allow some open running lanes that way. And Hill is definitely a gamer. I love the way he fights for yardage. And when he gets into the open field, he will make plays with his legs. My fear, and it has been this way the whole season, is that Coach Payton is going to get too cute in a game that cute is going to kill you. And it's going to backfire.
We almost saw that against Baltimore.
Exactly. And you and I had talked about that. And what ended up being a very close game in a drive that the Saints had physically dominated, getting too cute at the end cost them a score at all, and specifically turned the ball over. But I don't think Sean is going to stop using Taysom. I think he has developed a comfort level now where he's not going to even hesitate 1 millisecond to put him in the game if it's a playoff or a playoff on the line situation. I was just asked about this earlier, too. Is Drew Brees going to catch a pass this year? And my answer was, yeah. I'm just afraid what's going to happen to Drew after he catches the pass. That's inevitable. The defenses aren't going to pay a whole lot of attention to Drew when he's on the outside. And why would you? So one of these days, and I can actually see it being against Atlanta, one of these days, Sean is going to give the green light for Taysom Hill to throw the ball to Drew Brees. I just hope they execute it well. I hope Drew doesn't get hurt, and I hope they only do it once. Other than that, Taysom, you got to admire his guts, and I love his athletic ability, but he's nothing but a cute gadget. That's all.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to point this out, and the reason why I brought this up, because I can see Sean squirming the whole time. You notice in after the fourth down play, I think Taysom made one more appearance as quarterback in the shotgun in the Rams game, and he was never seen again. He lined up as a receiver. He lined up on special teams, but he didn't act as that decoy, take Drew out the game and put Taysom in, trying to do something cute. So that gives me the optimism that given the gravity of a game, that he is not going to try and get cute and put him in. I think if it's going to be one of those 3rd and goal, we're going to put Taysom in. It's about the 3-yard line. We're going to line up in a shotgun. Breeze is going to split outside the numbers. Maybe a token guy goes out there to watch for him. He fakes the RPO, fakes the run down into the inside, and then just kind of lobs a ball into the corner, and Breeze catches it right there. It's not going to be anything special. In fact, that 4th down play, that was supposed to be a little swing pass to Breeze, and he was supposed to get out of bounds, and the Rams read it. So what happened? Taysom did an unbelievable athletic play and ran it in and ran over the Rams safety for another 10 yards. It was something that really pumped the crowd up. So it's a good thing, bad thing kind of thing. I get tired of having him come in too many times. Mm-hmm. I love him being the up back in the punts, though.
Oh yeah,
because it always gives you that option. If and it's all on him too. He can change the signal right there. If he sees the middle of that defense open, because they're all coming around the edge to rush or to peel back and cover, he's going to call for the ball and he's going to run for it. no matter where they are in the field. And that's a great thing to have.
The thing about that is he is so fast that by the time you realize he's got it, he's gone.
Yep. And he's strong, too.
I don't have a problem with Taysom being involved in the offense. Like Bob alluded to, getting cute with him. And my biggest reservation is this. You have a unanimous choice, first ballot Hall of Famer under center or behind center. I forget that we're in the 2000s now. You got Drew Brees in at quarterback, and you're in a goal line situation against the best defense in the NFL, which we've done that for 4 weeks in a row now.
Yeah.
You've got that at your disposal, and you're completely crapping on that and putting a novelty act in, because those downs in the red zone against teams like a Minnesota, a Los Angeles Rams, those downs in the red zone are crucial. They're important. Sooner, like you saw against Baltimore, that possession in all likelihood, had there not been a fumble there, that possession would have went into the end zone, and we wouldn't have been needing that gust of wind from Tom Benson to hit Justin Tucker as at the end of the game. That game would have been decided. I don't want to see this team have to post a loss because Sean Payton got too cute with Taysom Hill. That's my biggest reservation. Now, like the journalist that I am, as long as he goes in and we score points, I'm good with it. Now,
I was gonna say, if you got a coach that calls for an onside kick to lead the Super Bowl, second half of the Super Bowl, who isn't afraid to run a reverse with a tight end, he's gonna be cute. He's gonna run cute plays. And
as long as it works, I'm cool.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. The difference between cute and great and cute and WTF is how successful that play is. And that's basically the kind of coach you have with Sean Payton. And
everybody that lauded him as being a genius for ambush, those same journalists, those same sports writers, those same talking heads would have roasted him had it not worked.
Oh yeah, that's how it always goes.
And here's if it backfires, here's how it's going to backfire. We just got done talking about how the Saints have just beat people physically all year long and just imposed their will. When you do that, you keep a defense off balance, and you can run that kind of thing more often than not with at least some degree of success. And I know you guys, I know what you guys meant too. What we mean, for our viewers, when we say too cute, you get too cute when you do it out of desperation. When you do it just to try to grab momentum. Sean has been doing these kind of things with Hill when the team already has momentum, or if he feels comfortable where they are. Because here's the thing. When Taysom Hill is in the game, the Saints are immediately playing 10 on 11 football. Because you can't count Drew Brees as a legitimate receiver if Taysom is in at quarterback. And if Drew stays at quarterback and Taysom lines up at wide receiver, like you said, Sean, Tebow is not a receiving threat. So you're still 10 on 11. You better have your play call accurate. You better have it on point. And your team better have the defense on their heels. That's the only reason this thing is working. And you bring up some great points, Alan, when you said that when Sean calls these plays, he already feels confident that they're going to work. So it's not cute out of desperation. And as long as it stays that way, I'm fine with everything happening the way it has been.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about the defense next time because we're way over time, and I want to talk about Cincinnati a little bit. Um, but the Bengals, I led the show off by saying this is a potential trap game. You just played an extremely emotional game against the Rams. And this is the week that Sean Payton puts the mouse traps out.
Yep.
You know, don't eat the cheese, mouse traps. So I'm asking you, Bob, how do you play this game against Cincinnati? Because this is the Bengals, but they can come back and bite you.
Absolutely. And remember, you're on the road, you're outdoors, you're coming up north in November. I haven't seen the weather forecast for up here yet. But and the Saints under Sean Payton have had a history of being tripped up in these kind of games. I think what you do, you come out, like you said, Alan, if any one of the three of us are coaching the New Orleans Saints right now, we're pulling out of the old Bill Parcells bag of motivational tricks. You're putting out mouse traps, or if any of these guys have been beaten in one-on-one matchups by any of these Bengals guys going all the way back to high school. You want to remind them of that, saying, hey, well, remember when Geno Atkins kicked your ass in high school or something like that? And then you come right out of the gate and you tell your guys you strangle the life out of these Cincinnati Bengals immediately. You have them knowing they cannot match up with you by the end of the first quarter. And if you don't, if the Bengals are still fighting and in this game by, say, halftime, then as Saints fans, we're all going to be going right back to our negativity, thinking, oh, my God, they're going to blow this. And that could be extremely possible.
Sean, how about you? How do you see the game?
As you said, this could very easily be a trap game. For all the reasons that you said, very emotional, very high intensity game that you had a week ago. The letdown could happen. Cincinnati doesn't scare me as they once did at the beginning of the season, primarily because AJ Green is not going to be on the field. You still got Tyler Boyd active, and he's a very good, and he's one of my fantasy receivers, by the way. But out of respect to the Fleur de Lis, I will not play him this week.
You should.
No. I cannot cheer for.
No, this is reverse karma. Don't you know that? You play a guy because you need the points, and he's not going to give you the points. That's how this works.
Okay,
Agreed.
he's active.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, they don't concern me like they once did because, as we've talked about many times before, Andy Dalton is still Andy Dalton.
And Marvin Lewis is still a 500 coach. He will make bad decisions
on good days. The potential for it being a trap game is absolutely there. I don't see it happening because, there were several games last year during that 8-week run where we had the win streak. There were several games there where the potential was there, but what we saw was a young team, very motivated, very willing to put it all on the line and do whatever it took to win the game. And this is still that very same mentality, that very same team. And I now, all that being said, I'm not that I'm looking past Cincinnati. I'm more concerned about the following week, being back in the Dome against the Super Bowl champions.
That's been flexed to prime time. Prime time, 3 in the afternoon our time, 4 in the afternoon Bob's time. I just read the Steelers game has now been flexed to 4 in the afternoon. So yeah, the Saints are playing a lot of primetime games right now, or with a whole nation watching kind of games. So yeah, this is a game you got to win because you can't look ahead. You cannot look ahead.
I said this I think a week ago, how this schedule has played out. We started with the Redskins, and they were supposed to be a lot better than what we anticipated, and that record game where Drew just completely lost his mind. We went from that to playing the number one defense again a week later against the Baltimore Ravens, and once again we took care of business. Then the following week, you had all the exercising the demons from January against the Minnesota Vikings. And it's just a little bit more amped up, a little bit bigger goal to reach for. And then 2 days ago, you had the biggest, baddest, most expensive team in football coming to town. The team that ended that 8-week stretch that we had a year ago. And they came to our house, and we had to put them down. Best thing I saw on social media, I saw this morning. It was an SUV with a ram's head on the front bumper. It said, "Meanwhile in New Orleans." But it's taken a lot of hard work and a lot of playing your ass off to get to the point where you're at, and it's going to take equally as much to maintain that position that you've worked so hard to get to.
I think that these guys, and you just made this exact point. I think that these guys, this group, this team, these coaches, I think that they are extremely motivated to be the best. They don't forget what it was like to not have a bye going into the playoffs and then have to go onto the road in the second game of the season. The leadership on this team, the Drew Breeses, the Cam Jordans, the Demario Davises, guys like that. They know what kind of tough stretch that this team has coming up. So they don't want to screw around and get tripped up where their backs are all of a sudden again to the wall. I mean, they don't. Yeah, they're 7-1 right now. Yeah, they've won 7 straight. Yeah, they have the tiebreaker advantage over Minnesota and Los Angeles and Washington, but they don't have a cushion. All those teams, and then the Carolina Panthers, who they still have to play twice, are breathing down their necks. And they'll have the opportunity to put the Atlanta Falcons out of our misery when they face them in a few weeks. Yeah, they know all that, but I agree with you. I don't think they're looking forward. I think that these guys are going to embrace this kind of opportunity. Great teams beat down the teams that they're supposed to beat down. And this is a team that on paper they should beat down. It wouldn't surprise me to see the score a little bit closer than what we anticipated. I can kind of see a scenario where they do come out in the first quarter with their butts on fire, like you said, Alan, and get a big lead and just kind of cruise from there. So we might only see a score like 27-17 or something like that. But I think it should be a comfortable win for the Saints this Sunday.
It should be, and I think the potential is there just as much as the potential of it being a trap game and the Saints coming out flat is real. I agree with you what you said in the outset, Bob. You've got to come out and punch these guys in the mouth early and step on their throat and make them give up their will to live. If you do that, then we can coast to a win. I hope this is the game when Mark Ingram comes alive. I hope this is that Mark Ingram 100-yard game because they don't handle the Bengals do not handle a multi-dimensional attack very well. I think we have the passing you can do it, but I'd like for this game to be the game where the running game really just dominates the Bengals. And we look at.
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say we look at the offense of the Bengals on the sideline most of the game. And I'd like to see this is the game I'd like to see Cam Jordan and that defensive line get some cheap sacks. Start racking up some sacks and get a couple turnovers from that secondary. So, that's.
And Sean pointed out that Andy Dalton is still Andy Dalton. So if they pressure him, he's going to throw them a couple. Geno Atkins, their best player, and especially on that defense. He is a terrific ball player and going to be a nice one-on-one matchup with him and Warford and him and Pete. But you can run right at Geno Atkins. I see the Bengals a lot because I see some Steeler games up here.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers almost always have success running right at the Bengals interior line. And that's right into the strengths of what the way the Saints like to run the ball. And that's right into the strengths of what Mark Ingram does best. So yeah, Alan, I agree with you. If Ingram's going to get on track soon, this would be the game that I could see him doing it.
Yep, exactly. Well, we want to thank all you guys for joining us tonight, and thank you for sticking with us for the extra half hour. Did you want to join? Did you want to say something? I'm sorry. I'm just cutting right to the end here. Did you want to say something, Sean?
No, I'm good, brother.
Okay.
Bob, tell everybody how they can follow the
Yes.
Bayou Blitz.
I'm everywhere. First of all, the Bayou Blitz and anybody that has tuned in and listened, we thank you so very much. I hope we're putting on a good show for you guys. But we're going to take the week off this week. We have some scheduling conflicts, but we're going to be right back stronger than ever next Wednesday, back to our normal bat time and our normal bat channel. But the Bayou Blitz you can normally catch on Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Central time. And if you ever want to catch any of our past shows, you can download the Spreaker app or go to saintspodcast.com and look up Bayou Blitz and see any of our shows. We've been on the air since March, but we have had some absolutely spectacular guests. Like I said, we've had tons of fun. You guys have been on the show. I hope you guys had fun. I know you made me look great, so I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, thank us for having us on the show.
We're definitely going to get you back on too. We have a couple more former Saints greats coming on. I'm in some negotiations with them. Hashtag syndicate. They're making our rounds through us. And then you can also follow my my article work through Canal Street Chronicles on Facebook and Twitter as well. I just released this afternoon my midseason grade for the Saints offense. Next, working on the defense, and then of course we're going to preview this upcoming Bengal game. But I'll have a lot of fun in the article too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Bob, for joining us. You're always welcome on our show. You know that you provide great insight, and it's always fun to get Will on the show too. Despite it being a terrible time of night for him, it's always fun to have him on the show. So thanks for joining us, and thank you guys for joining us tonight. I know it's election night. I hope this show provided some much more interest than that stuff that's going on the networks. I'm not watching it. If we weren't doing this show, I guarantee you I'd be watching something on Netflix or watching a replay of the Saints game from Sunday because I don't want to talk about that stuff. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.